Michael Bay, playboy, millionaire, director, and producer. The best person to do an auteur profile on, right? Hello, my name is Dakota Stansfield, and today I'm doing an auteur profile on the legend Michael Bay. Now, yes, I say the best person to do an auteur profile on because he's kind of gotten a lot of bad rep as a director. I mean, he has been nominated 4 different times for the Worst Director Golden Raspberry Award, so... And I think that's a lot due to because I think people just don't like his directing process. See, what we all know Michael Bay from is we know him from Transformers. I mean, when you think Michael Bay, you think action-packed movies with huge explosions and just so many crazy scenes going on. But because of that, a lot of his movies suffer in all of the other categories. Michael always tends to focus on the more action side of his films. He's into the huge explosions and the fast cars and the really cool scenes. And a lot of people have even kind of given him the name of pyrotechnic because of this. I mean, it's well-fitting considering when he was 13, he set his own house on fire. So, now for this auteur profile on Michael, I wanted to analyze 2 different movies of his to kind of compare the similarities and the differences between them. Now, I could have simply just went with his most popular movies, Transformers. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But I kind of wanted to focus on some different movies that maybe weren't so mainstream. I feel like to really analyze a director, you kind of have to watch some of their more non-popular films. And for this, I chose 2 different films from 2 different complete times. I wanted to pick a film from early Michael Bay and a film from new Michael Bay. And this resulted in Bad Boys, the first one from 1995, and one of his newer films that's out on Netflix right now, 6 Underground. Now, starting with 6 Underground, this movie is very Michael Bay-esque, meaning that there is action going on the whole time. I mean, it literally hits you in the beginning with this amazing car scene, which just is kind of different from a lot of films, because a lot of films will wait to push the action off until later into the film to kind of build up to it. And see, but Michael kind of went with a different approach for this film and just kind of threw the action right into the beginning. Now, this is the part where I should probably mention that both of these films are R-rated, so Parental Advisory. That also means that the next things I'm going to start talking about are a little bit gory, so just heads up. Now, in the beginning of this, we get to see a different side of Michael almost. I mean, we know Michael for the big explosions, but we don't really know Michael for the gory kind of scenes. But right in the beginning, you have one of the team members drive straight into a forklift. This is interesting because it almost kind of leads me to believe that with all this, Michael was kind of trying something new with this film. Not necessarily new in the sense of that it's never been done before, but new in the sense of new to Michael. I mean, obviously the action isn't new to him, but a lot of the scenes and a lot of the stunts that he was trying were something that we've never seen from him before. And I think that's kind of why this film didn't get as mainstream as it probably should have. I mean, it was pretty huge, you know, it was on all of the demos of all of the TVs in every electronics store for the longest time just because of how visually pleasing this film looked. However, it wasn't as popular as it probably should have been. And the reason I say that is because Michael did what Michael does and did something different with action films that we don't really see that often. And that is the plans of the protagonist being something honestly surprising to the audience that they wouldn't even have noticed before. With a lot of films, especially action-packed films, the audience will know early on what the plan's gonna be for the end game. But with this film, it's like you never really knew what the end goal was. Michael did honestly such a great job with the script writing in this that it almost seemed that the characters didn't even know what the end goal was. I mean, there's a part towards the end of the movie where they're on the yacht. I won't spoil too much, but Ryan Reynolds, one of the reasons I wanted to do this film, because he's one of my favorite actors. But anyways, besides the point, Ryan Reynolds even says on the boat that he didn't even expect him to make it this far. And that just kind of shows how great of script writing Michael did with this film. All in all, if you haven't seen this film yet, definitely go watch it. It's 100% worth it, and the action in the film is just amazing. Now moving on to a film that didn't do as well by Michael Bay, and that would be Bad Boys, the first one. This film really didn't get good reviews. I mean, they were kind of subpar at most. And I think that honestly has to do with just the script writing. I mean, everything else in this film was fantastic. The cinematography was out of this world. For its time, I mean, it's definitely not compared to like the cinematography in Six Underground, you know, that was made in 2019. But for 1995, it has some pretty good shots. However, I will say the action in this film was a little lacking considering it was a Michael Bay film. I mean, honestly, if you hadn't seen the movie before watching it, you would probably not guess that it was a Michael Bay film. I mean, because like I had mentioned earlier, I mean, you know Michael Bay is for the action just constantly throughout the whole movie, but in this one, he didn't focus too much on the action. So don't get me wrong, there's definitely action, but just not what you would expect. But in a sense, it was almost kind of relieving in a way. I mean, going from watching Six Undergrounds, which is just action the whole time, to watching Bad Boys, it was kind of almost nice to not have action the whole time. So you're probably wondering, well, if it did good on everything else and they only messed up on the script writing, why did it do so bad? Well, that's honestly because the script writing was terrible. I mean, it was 1995, so it's obviously going to be different from now. But even for that time, it was still bad. Which is surprising because when you have your two main characters as Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, you think that the acting would have been able to balance that out, but it just wasn't. I mean, even, you know, the fact that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence were still younger and were still newer in their acting career at this time, they still were fantastic actors, but they couldn't make it work. I remember this specific scene towards the end. Warning, there is going to be a spoiler here, where the two main characters, Mike and Marcus, had just defeated the main villain. I won't say too much about him to not give away too many spoilers, but we'll just say it was the main villain, the antagonist. And you know how when the main characters finally beat the antagonist, they always have this like really cool heroic saying or whatever that they say? Well, Michael Bay's idea of a cool heroic saying was for Marcus, played by Martin Lawrence, to ask the antagonist, the villain, if they thought that they would have a bullet in their leg at 5 o'clock when they woke up this morning. I mean, that's just fantastic script writing. I mean, I couldn't think of anything more heroic that he could have said. No, but in all seriousness, if you haven't seen Bad Boys yet, go watch it. It's definitely worth it, and it's definitely a good film, especially for its time. Now, I will say the films that came as a result of it, like Bad Boys 2 and Bad Boys for Life that just came out last year, are a little bit better films. But either way, definitely go check out Bad Boys. Although Michael Bay hasn't gotten the best rep in media or just in society in general, you can't knock the fact that he's a fantastic director. I mean, you just have to admit that Michael Bay is action. I mean, the things that he pioneered for action movies is just unmatched. So putting aside all of his directing techniques and his processes and stuff like that, which are questionable, he's still a legend and will always be remembered as one of the greatest directors of all time.